On a still winter's night in Caboolture, Queensland, undercover cameras record a group of horses gated inside a series of holding pens. This is not a safe place for these animals. Recent injuries are noticeable. An ominous sign, this is a place of violence. Brandings burnt into their hides reveal these aren't just any horses. They're registered thoroughbred racehorses. Night after night, more and more appear. And according to the racing industry's own policies and rules, they should not be ending up here. An hour's drive north of Brisbane, in Caboolture, Queensland, is Merrimist Abattoir. The facility slaughters mixed livestock, including horses.
Merrimist is just up the road. It's an abattoir, and they kill these horses for human consumption.
So where's the meat going?
It goes to various different European countries, Russia as well, and Japan.
So Australian racehorses are being slaughtered here and exported overseas?
Yeah, that's correct.
For the past 2 years, Elio Chelotto and others from the Coalition for the Protection of Racehorses have been watching Merrimist, using perimeter cameras to record the daily activities on the ground. In Australia, it's legal to send racehorses to abattoirs for slaughter. No law protects them.
If you stand on the property boundary, on the tree line, and look into the property, you'll see horses being unloaded from there, and horses being unloaded down the ramp, sometimes hit with polypipe. They run down the ramp and then corralled into a pen, and at times it looks like a sea of horses coming down towards you. A fairly high percentage of those horses are in fact racehorses.
Separate to the Coalition for the Protection of Racehorses monitoring Merrimist, a team of undercover investigators has entered the abattoir, recording hundreds of hours of covert vision, documenting the horses passing through. The vision has been provided to the ABC, and we've agreed to protect the investigators' identities. 22 separate visits spanning 2 years, methodically scanning microchips and filming brandings. We've forensically cross-matched them to the industry's official record of thoroughbreds, the Australian Stud Book, to reveal around 300 racehorses, representing almost $5 million in prize money, have been detected at Merrimist Abattoir in just 22 days alone. The estimated number per year, arrived at by the Coalition for the Protection of Racehorses, is staggering.
Equates to about 4,000 racehorses killed in this one abattoir alone.
4,000?
4,000, probably closer to 5,000.
For the equine cargo on this truck, the journey to Merrimist has not been kind.
You can see one horse there on the side of the road. He's already been dragged out. And we're seeing a second horse here. He's been pulled out by the neck. There he is.
The images you're about to see are confronting. Covert cameras record horses being beaten and abused from the moment they arrive at Merrimist. Trampled and trapped. Forced to slaughter. Lashed. With rage and fury. Trapped in a maze of holding pens. Frantic and disoriented, subjected to electric shocks. Subjected to electric shocks. What if I told you that hundreds of horses are ending up say at an abattoir or a knackery, these facilities where they are subjected to beatings, electrocuted, genitals electrocuted, anus electrocuted. Undercover cameras strategically installed inside Merrimist's killing room record mass animal destruction. Hundreds of racehorses, many watching in terror, trying to escape. The sounds of slaughter accompanied by the happy hum of music on the radio. It's a damning state of affairs. On site at Merrimist, horses bred from studs located across Australia are identified. Coolmore, Kia Ora, Epsom Lodge, Widden Stud, Bona Stud, South Australia's Riverside Stud, and Kambula, Woodlands in New Zealand, Queensland's Lyndhurst Stud, Byerley Stud, the prestigious Emirates Park, Southern Hemisphere bloodstock.
These horses come from pretty much everywhere. They can be very small breeders that might only breed 2 or 3 horses. Then there's the bigger breeders that might breed 20 or 30 or 40 a year. And then you've got the really big breeders, the ones that can produce a couple of hundred horses. None of these horses are protected.
On one day alone, more than 40 racehorses are recorded being slaughtered on camera. Where are all these horses coming from, these racehorses?
Some are coming straight off the racetrack. Some of these horses may have been sold on, they may have been passed on through 2 or 3 people.
Multiple racehorses are recorded on camera, abused and poorly bolted.
Well, the horse appeared to blink, which is a strong suggestion that it's conscious. And that shouldn't be permitted at all.
This unidentified horse is bolted 5 times. Suffering met with whoops of enjoyment.
Yeah, that's very, very distressing.
Others stomped and kicked.
Clearly, there's no excuse for that sort of treatment. That's not acceptable. Of course it isn't. It's disgusting.
The disgusting images don't end with the destruction of thoroughbred racehorses. We can reveal standardbreds from the trots, marked by these distinctive brandings burnt into their necks, are slaughtered too.
Light on their racing very quickly indeed.
Implicating the harness racing industry, the Pacers, despite its policy of rehoming retiring trotters.
4 grand finals, you beauty!
On one day alone, 14 standardbreds are destroyed at Merrimist, back to back, in the space of just 5 minutes. We can also reveal thoroughbred racehorses as young as 2 years old, fillies and colts, and the broodmares that produce them are ending up at Merrimist, huddled together, slaughtered in front of one another, some under 2 years of age. When Elio Cellotto watched this vision, this group of branded horses, he realised they were bred by Hardwick Stud, located in Yass, New South Wales. When contacted by 7:30, Hardwick Stud representatives told us they were not involved in the discarding of their horses at Merrimist Abattoir. They aren't the only horses linked to New South Wales that have ended up interstate in Queensland. The following gruesome images prove, according to the horses' microchips and brandings, These New South Wales-born gallopers have been slaughtered for human consumption in Queensland. 4-year-old Sunny Fame.
And Sunny Fame races to the lead.
8-year-old Only Money.
Only Money raced away to win the last.
3-year-old Rapid Feet.
Rapid Feet sprints out to the early lead by 2 lengths.
4-year-old Bumbunga.
Bumbunga on the outside.
8-year-old Valtari.
It's all Valtari. Valtari went down and won it by 4 lengths.
Mares Moonline Dancer and Lapis Lazuli. 6-year-old Take a Chance.
Next is Take a Chance.
7-year-old Vortuka.
But Vortuka's got a handy break here. But Vortuka, a big winner.
4-year-old Absolutely Win.
Absolutely wins second.
Sold as a 2-year-old for $180,000. To name just a few. All of them slaughtered at Merrimist in the past 18 months. How New South Wales bred and domiciled horses ended up in an abattoir in Queensland requires answers, because under New South Wales rules, it's strictly prohibited.
Industry that has overseen the slaughter of tens of thousands of healthy dogs. The only humane response is to close that industry down. Thanks, everyone.
In mid-2016, the Baird government banned greyhound racing in New South Wales after the ABC exposed this illegal practice, live baiting, and extreme wastage, the killing of unwanted dogs.
Where will all these dogs go and how will they find homes?
Like it or not, the greatest challenge racing has at the moment is welfare.
The horse racing industry came together to address its biggest problem.
Well, we do have wastage as well. We're the next online for the animal liberationists. If you think we're not, you're kidding yourself.
Industry leaders, led by Racing New South Wales CEO Peter V'landys, mounted a PR offensive.
We've got some pretty good news today.
Introducing a raft of new animal welfare measures.
Today, in a first of any jurisdiction in Australia, we're going to announce that 1% will be taken out of all prize money in New South Wales to establish a horse welfare fund.
The new Horse Welfare Fund was complemented by this ironclad guarantee.
We're going to ensure that every horse in New South Wales that's domiciled in New South Wales will be rehomed.
Racing New South Wales also purchased 3 properties, publicising the acquisitions as retirement paradises for gallopers leaving the track.
We're not going to stop once the horse has been given to somebody else. We're going to expand it to the next level where we want to know that the horse is having a good retirement.
Racing New South Wales and Racing ACT also introduced a new enforceable rule, stating in the event that owners are unable to find a home for a horse that's being retired, the horse is not to be directly or indirectly sent to an abattoir or a knackery. And a horse cannot be sold or gifted at a livestock auction, not approved by the regulator.
You would think that if they have this rule in place, that the very first thing that they would do is have somebody attend these sales so that these horses can be picked up and rescued and not sent to slaughter.
The sale of racehorses at unauthorised livestock auctions is occurring. An hour's drive west of Sydney, on the first Wednesday of each month, are the Camden Horse Sales, a popular livestock auction. For the past 10 months, undercover investigators have infiltrated the Camden Horse Sales, providing the footage to the ABC, recording vast numbers of branded, registered racehorses here. There's nothing preventing the auction house from selling these gallopers, no law against it. And it's not known exactly how so many racehorses have ended up here. But it's a brazen contravention of racing rules if industry participants have anything to do with the trade. Horses are recorded visibly distressed, gnawing at the enclosure known as wind-sucking, others bleeding and wounded. Outside in the large public yard, undercover investigators try to find out more, whether kill buyers, known in the industry as doggers, are buying racehorses here.
Where do they go from here?
What do you mean?
They
go to different people who bought them. Some guys come here and they buy a heap of horses.
After an awkward pause, the truth comes out.
As long as he doesn't go to the doggers. Yeah.
Some of them will go to the doggers.
The doggers and their transporters are ever present here, and the holding pens are constantly replenished with the racing industry's wastage, including downcast broodmare Lady Bryce, 5-year-old Bells Creek, and Glen Appin, almost $40,000 of prize money between them. Incredibly, both mares are listed as active and racing on the regulator's online database. I'm wondering, what does active mean?
It means that the horse is still in the racing industry, that it's still competing.
Can a horse be listed as active and actually have been sent to a knackery?
If the owners haven't notified us, that's a possibility, yes. I mean, we have to rely on the information that's given to us. I mean, we don't have the resources to go to every horse in New South Wales to see if it's alive or passed away.
Back at Camden, outside, loads of horses are being driven away. Waiting to load up today's bargains is a large white truck with blue stripes. Undercover investigators strike up a conversation.
Where are those ones going?
They're going to White Plains.
Okay. Is that local or?
No, it's Cootamundra.
Okay.
But instead of driving 3.5 hours to Cootamundra, the truck drives just 25 minutes north, arriving here. Off the long, winding northern road, at the end of a dirt loop, is Luddenham Pet Meat, a knackery, owned and operated by John and Beck Pace.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce Beck Pace.
This is Beck Pace.
We produce over 20,000 kilos of fresh meat a week. 80% of our trade is the greyhound industry.
Addressing the crowd at the 2016 rally to overturn the greyhound racing ban in New South Wales.
What sort of contingency plan they've got in place for the hundreds of horses and cattle and the hundreds of horses in the Sydney Basin.
I mean, that tells you everything about the connection between the greyhound industry and the racing industry. They rely on each other.
Aerial surveillance at Luddenham reveals cows in a grassy green paddock to the right. On the other side of the barbed wire fence, in Luddenham's barren paddock, are racehorses.
For Luddenham to be accepting racehorses protected by the New South Wales rules of racing is abhorrent.
We've been provided with CCTV vision, the daily comings and goings at Luddenham's arrivals yard, catching the white truck with the blue stripes from the Camden horse sales arriving at the knackery. Unloading, leaving emptied of its cargo. Meanwhile, an endless stream of customers buying massive bags of minced meat direct from the knackery's shopfront. Many towing mobile kennels, greyhound floats. Horses are dropped off for slaughter, including clearly branded thoroughbred gallopers, the racing industry's wastage, recorded wandering around the busy public drive-through, reversed into, while greyhound racing participants carry tons of mince to their cars. Even greyhounds themselves, the dish lickers, are recorded here.
When you really think about this cycle of breeding, using, then disposing of them, it's grotesque, and how it's allowed to continue is beyond me, and it needs to come to an end.
The question is, are New South Wales racehorses being fed to greyhounds as fuel? But Luddenham Pet Meat doesn't just supply mince to the greyhound racing industry. It also supplies boarding kennels and pet shops across Sydney. How possible is it that everyday Australians have been buying mince and feeding their animals racehorses?
Well, it's highly likely. And to know that people can buy their pet food and it comes from a racehorse, I think most people would find it absolutely repugnant.
I have seen proof of multiple racehorses ending up at Luddenham Pet Meet after the knackery ban came into force. It's unclear how and why Perfectly Spun came to be at a knackery just 8 days after it was officially retired.
They produce data that they want to release to the general public to give the impression that they're looking after these horses, and they're not. They're simply not.
But the regulator is confident its integrity is intact, its rules are working. It says it hasn't found any proof of unauthorised slaughter at abattoirs interstate or at New South Wales knackeries.
0 are ending up at a knackery or an abattoir in New South Wales. That's what we've just said. What if I told you that's not correct? That there are New South Wales horses ending up at a knackery and an abattoir?
Well, if there is, it means that the people have acted against the rules of racing, and if we have evidence of that, they will be dealt with pretty severely. We'll put the full force of the rules of racing against anyone that does that, because it's a severe breach of our rules and our terms and conditions of being in the thoroughbred racing industry.
Back at the Camden horse sales, inside the auction ring, undercover cameras record more racehorses being sold off, including mare Milster for $350. And this 5-year-old stallion, National Flag, bred by Victorian powerhouse Rosemont Stud, sold to a Chinese syndicate in 2016 for $200,000.
National Flag has won at 3/4.
Just 3 years later, National Flag is sold off for a measly $380.
Racing New South Wales has a whole integrity department that is supposed to protect these horses from these very situations.
But undercover investigators have found more horses are falling through the regulator's systems of traceability.
Where are these going? Huh? Why? Why am I there too? No, that was day on.
Nestled behind Western Sydney's busy Windsor Road in Riverston, at the end of a long driveway, is Burns Pet Foods, a knackery. Here, the best is fresh. We've seen proof the following horses have ended up at Burns Pet Foods, condemned to death in the past 10 months alone. Gelding Legal Waves, last raced October 2017, a week after the New South Wales knackery ban came into force.
Legal Waves.
7-year-old Hard Rain, 4-year-old Reliable Kingdom.
And Reliable Kingdom dropped out of it.
Explore the World. After it left stud, it went on to win almost $125,000 in prize money. 5-year-old Grand Icon.
And Grand Icon in the white colour in the middle.
A mare, Cloverdale.
Cloverdale hits the front end.
3-year-old Next of Kin. Still listed as active on the regulator's database.
Photo of that, Next of Kin, it's a head bobber.
11-year-old Halo's Image.
Halo's Image has got through to win number 4.
More than $50,000 in prize money.
Halo's Image is going home the best.
And this horse.
Tahitian Black is starting to chime in on the outside as well. Tahitian Black now coming ahead.
The calibre of Tahitian Black, the fact that he ended up discarded at Burns Pet Food, is breathtaking.
They're off. Tahitian Black off the inside began well.
$400,000 in prize money.
Tahitian Black's cut the corner.
Sired by the famed galloper Lonhro.
Tahitian Black's driving, and I think on the outside may have won it.
Tahitian Black was trialled and raced more than 70 times. 6 years of hard service, pushed to the limits, for people to punt and wager on for sport. Passed through a series of high-profile trainers, eventually snapped up by a top 20 trainer to race and own for himself. David Pfeiffer of Warwick Farm, New South Wales.
40 horse stable here at Warwick Farm, small boutique stable, but we always manage to keep the boxes full.
Online, David Pfeiffer wrote a stirring farewell to the classy, tenacious, gentle, treasured gelding upon its retirement in 2016.
Hello.
Oh, hello, I'm after David Pfeiffer, please. Hi, I rang David Pfeiffer to try and find out whether he knows what's happened to Tahitian Black. Where did you retire Tahitian Black to?
I think where he is now.
We believe that Tahitian Black has actually ended up at a knackery.
Oh, Jesus. How can you confirm that?
Well, I want to know if you had anything to do with it, if that's happened.
No, not at all. Not at all. So once I give him away, find him home, it's sort of out of my hands.
I also asked David Pfeiffer what happened to another of his horses identified in our investigation, Next of Kin. And did you register Next of Kin as formally retired with the Racing New South Wales, or...?
I think we have to these days. Just give me a second, I'm just trying to log into my Racing Australia. No, he actually hasn't been listed as retired.
Why is that?
Yeah, must have been oversight in the stables. It's a computer oversight. You can't hold me to that.
We've also confirmed, been shown proof, that standardbreds, pacers from the trots, are being slaughtered at these knackeries too, despite New South Wales Harness Racing's lifelong tracking and care of standardbreds, announced in 2016. While it's not illegal for New South Wales knackeries to be slaughtering racehorses, one fact is incontrovertible. It's the racing industry that's fueling their business.
The knackeries are essentially cleaning up the racing industry's mess and getting rid of it. The problem now is that they're being exposed for what really is happening out there.
It's not known how so many registered New South Wales racehorses have ended up at Burns and Luddenham, who ultimately sealed their fates. But I tried to speak with both knackeries. Across the border, in Queensland, at Merrimist Abattoir.
There's a horse here that a young girl dropped off yesterday. Worth $80,000. He only paid $80,000 for it, but it's nearly killed 3 people.
The racing industry's wastage is endless. The identity of one of these racehorses is particularly shocking. Tracing his brandings, we can reveal his name is War Ends.
War Ends is clear. It's War Ends in front. It'll lead all the way in the North Coast Mile. War Ends has won it.
Sired by Redout's Choice, pictured here in 2008, where it was sold at the Inglis sales for $400,000. Listed on New South Wales Racing's database, 87 starts and trials in 5 years.
War Ends clinging on. War Ends. War Ends.
Almost $400,000 in prize money and bonuses.
But it's War Ends. He'll go one better this year and he'll win the John Carlton from ideal position. Photo third, Dinky.
War Ends, the gelding you see here in the kill box, is still listed as active on Racing Australia's online database, 18 months after it was slaughtered for human consumption. Bolting, complemented by kicks to the head. Behind closed doors at Merrimist Abattoir, there is no Wonderland, no Cloud9 here.
We're talking about destroying horses on an industrial scale. We're seeing animals suffering. I don't think anybody in the industry could ever defend this.
I'm going to give you a worst case scenario. You tell me how bad this scenario would be. That New South Wales racehorses are being sold at livestock auctions that aren't approved and they're falling into the hands of kill buyers. That New South Wales racehorses are also being sent interstate for slaughter, and that New South Wales racehorses are also being knackered in New South Wales. This is post the ban. We're told this is happening.